10 unforgettable anime villains and antagonists on Hidive. Every anime needs a good villain or antagonist. After all, it would be much of a story if the main character achieved their goal right away, except maybe in some postmodern stories, but we digress. Every villain is an antagonist, but not all antagonists are villains. Villains are bad people who do bad things, but the only requirement for being an antagonist is standing between the protagonists and their goal. Today, we're running up 10 of our favorite anime villains and antagonists from shows you can watch right now on Hidive. Bondru from Made Abyss. We'll start with Best Dad Bondru, who is the iconic villain of Made Abyss. Rico, Reg, and Nanachi have faced the dangers of the titular Abyss before, but you can blame an orb, Berser, for his actions. It's acting according to its nature. But Bondru is different. Bondru is a person that is capable of both rational thought and making choices. He is a man driven by discovery and science, which would be admirable if he wasn't willing to sacrifice everything in the name of research. What makes him truly chilling is that he's just so polite. He's gladly happy over the tea and discuss the finer points of the philosophy with you, all while planning how to dissect you to further his latest research project. The Jaegers from Akame ga Kill. What makes the Jaegers so fascinating is that the morality varies between team members. Estet is evil, there's no question about that. Suryu, she's a walking cautionary tale about the dangers of cognitive biases. But then you have others like Bowles, who's a passive person and a dedicated family man. There's also Wave, who is a genuinely heroic character who's simply on the wrong side of the conflict. But what makes them stand out is that they truly see each other as irreplaceable comrades despite their moral differences. Tiamat from Fate Grand Order Absolute Demonic from Babylonia. The most important thing you need to know about Tiamat is that she's classified as a beast. In the Fate franchise, that's a terrible thing. Tiamat and those like her, yes, that's more than our one beast, are the settings equivalent of Cthulhu and are thus an apocalyptic threat to everyone in the near vicinity. Cancel weekend plans will be the least of your worries if you ever encounter her. Tiamat loves all their children and, while that sounds good, her status as a beast means she's driven by a primordial instinct to exterminate all of humanity. She doesn't owe you an explanation either. At the end of the day, she's not so much a villain antagonist so much as she is in beyond the concept of human morality itself. Squiller from the New World. Look at him. Would you trust a face like that? Of course you would. And for good reason. Squiller is not a pleasant person and everything about him oses. Weasel. Okay, he's actually a monster rat, but the analogy is valid. When he first shows us up, you can help but feels like he has an ulterior motive and that the protagonists are somehow playing right into his hands. It's also very hard to say anything else about him without spoiling the entire series, so let's just say there's a good reason why he's on this list. Kayarga from Red of Healer. Let's not mind words or try our hand at mental gymnastics. Kayarga is most definitely a villain. It is a terrible person who does terrible things to terrible people. He's what's known as a villain protagonist, where, you guessed it, the main character is one of the bad guys. So instead of a story where the hero heroically fights against corruption and the forces of evil, Red of Healer is about the villain who takes revenge on everyone who has ever wronged him. So it is a vast understatement, so that's to say that things get dark really fast. Nearly everyone from When They Cry. It says a lot about when they cry when the main villain isn't as memorable as everyone else's sins and villainy. Yes, that's right, When They Cry actually has a main villain, but you'd be forgiven if you forgot that. When you think of this series, you think of Rena and her murder hatchet, Shion's psychotic laughing face. Satoko's latest antics in When They Cry Sotsu are some combination of all three, and that doesn't even address what the other characters do. Thanks to how the story unfolds, pretty much everyone gets their turn to play both psychopath and victim. Enzo Braun for Lupin the Third Part 5. Has anyone noticed a growing trend in various media to portray big tech as misguided at best these days? Enzo Braun is no exception. Unsure, he had a noble goal at first. He created a people log after losing his family so that what happened to them will happen to others. But remember what he said about big tech at the beginning of the section? Turns out all that power went into his head. And now he wants to use his invention against the world's greatest thief as a proof of the concept, which pits Lupin against one of the greatest threats he's ever known, the distributive and crowd-sourced power of social media. Sachiko from Cross-Border Torture Souls. Japanese cinemas are conditioned of primordial lizard brains to associate creepy ghost girls with danger, and Sachiko does absolutely nothing to dissuade us of that notion. Sachiko is what's known in Japan as an onrayo, which is an incredibly dangerous vengeful spirit. Why? It's because they know how to hold a grudge and do not discriminate in that regard. In the West, vengeful spirits are usually only a danger to the ones responsible for their current unliving state. But in Oryu, everyone is a target, but even in a sense, we were in the wrong place at the wrong time, which goes a long way in explaining why Sachiko terminated a group of friends, because actually only crime was performing an Orba Legend ritual for good luck. So stay away from anything related to Orba Legends. Gabrielle Miner from Sword Online Alicization War of Underworld. Oh boy, wish you even start with Gabrielle. True, unempathetic villains who don't care about anyone are the time of dozen. So what makes Gabriel stand out from the psychopath crowd? Probably because, unlike other main bad guys, he doesn't have any kind of connection to the main character. That's right, he and Kirito don't really have anything to do with each other and treat each other like obstacles in each other's way. And that should tell you just how much of the trait Gabriel really is. Usually villains that have personal connections to the hero are the ones who stand out, not the opposite. Jibril from No Game No Life. If you were to play a game of cat and mouse, Jibril will be a tiger, not an hyperbole. That's how big of a threat she actually is. Fortunately for Shiro and Sora, she's content to play games, all while reminiscing in the good old days where you could simply kill your enemies. Again, that's not hyperbole. She shows up as an antagonist in the prequel movie before Tet rose to power, and she's absolutely ruthless. And to make matters worse, we know for the fact that she has to survive the movie, which did not bode well for our protagonist. Discover even more anime villains and antagonists on Hidive. Now, the Captain Obvious statement is that we have more than just these 10 on Hidive. Nearly every story in existence has a villain or an antagonist, and they are truly unforgettable and interesting. But let you discover that for yourself. We don't want to spoil things more than we already have. After all, to sign up for your free Hidive trial today and find your new favorite villain or antagonist.